current market conditions, but between the time that you've broadcast the transaction and it getting confirmed in a block, all of a sudden a new wave of transactions appears, and they have slightly higher fees. And now you're at the back of a very long line. And there's no way for you to update the fee on your transaction once it's broadcast. Now, there are a few proposals out there like replace by fee or child pays for parent that may be solutions to this, but they currently don't really exist and they have their own issues. The problem may not even get fixed at the protocol level, and if not, it would not at all surprise me if we begin to see off-chain markets for fees and block size space begin to emerge to try to solve this problem outside of the protocol. I believe that we will eventually need larger block sizes, though the debate has been raging for technically years, but definitely most of this year at the boiling point. And it's really become more ideological than technical at this point. It's mainly centering around what the acceptable resource usage for nodes should be, what the cost to run nodes should be, how decentralized do we need the network to be, and really it has even become more of a meta argument about the governance of the protocol and how we should approach hard forks. The reason why I'm convinced that we're going to need larger blocks is that even the current scalability proposals that are out on the table will not be completely effective without larger blocks. For example, choosing to scale via payment channels, aka Lightning Network, while they allow users to effectively conduct hundreds, if not thousands, of transactions off blockchain at little cost, eventually you still have to settle on the Bitcoin network. Tom Harding noted that in order for payment channels to solve Bitcoin's scalability problem while remaining at a 1 megabyte limit, if we got to the point of global adoption, this would require a consolidation point of about 25,000 transactions per one blockchain settlement. That's a little bit outside the range of my optimism, though who knows, it might happen. Another way to estimate the potential future block size requirements is to consider that every user, in order to fully utilize Bitcoin, they need to have at least one unspent output on the Bitcoin blockchain to use it in a trustless manner. So a little math that you can do from that is that at 7 transactions per second, which is actually optimistically high, it would actually take about 32 years to distribute one transaction output to all 7 billion people on the planet. So for all practical purposes, at 1 megabyte, fewer than 1% of people will ever be able to own even a single Satoshi, unless those people are willing to wait 30 years to get a settlement. I don't think that every transaction in the world, of course, should be on the blockchain, but I think that it should be able to eventually handle these larger transaction volumes, just large enough to be able to settle on a time scale suitable for humans. If we wanted to support about 1 transaction output per person per day, or 7 billion transactions per day, that translates to about 81,000 transactions per second, which is about 10,000 times the current rate. So that would be about 10 gigabytes per 10 minutes. So estimate 10 gigabytes per block. That's on the outer limits of what we can currently handle with consumer hardware. But I am confident that as the years progress, bandwidth requirements and disk space requirements, all of the normal deflationary price pressures that we see in technology will make those particular attributes to hit those volumes actually become much cheaper and more affordable for the average end user to be able to support at home. At BitGo, we believe that in order to fully utilize the benefits of Bitcoin, users must operate on blockchain. As such, we are in favor of larger blocks so that more users can be accommodated on the blockchain. I think that the block size debate should not so much be about if we should increase the block size, but rather by how much we can increase it without adversely affecting the reliability of the current network infrastructure. Whatever the final consensus is on this issue, there will be trade-offs, and some people will be unhappy, and some people will be disenfranchised. Now, privacy, which is interesting from the last talk, that it is certainly true that as time progresses, there will be better analysis of the blockchain that will help people uncover and reduce privacy. But on the other hand, I see a group of people, those of us who consider ourselves crypto-anarchists and cypherpunks, who will, for the rest of our lives, be fighting a battle against the people who wish to reduce privacy. And so I'm happy to say that I'm actually a member of the Open Bitcoin Privacy Project. And BitGo has participated in the most recent round of wallet ratings so that we can better understand what we can do to change our own service to enhance the privacy of our users. There are several different privacy attack vectors that need to be taken into consideration for blockchain services. You've got the blockchain observers who will try to link transactions and addresses together via graph analysis. This is what chain analysis and Coinalytics, I believe, are doing. You've got network observers who will set up Sybil nodes and try to link addresses together by observing the source IP addresses that are the first to broadcast transactions, or even to perform balance queries or relay transactions. Bloom filter privacy within SPV wallets is an interesting attack vector. And then you've got transaction participants themselves who will send dust outputs to previously used addresses on the blockchain in order to tempt wallets into trying to spend these outputs and merge them with other outputs in order to create more correlations that you can use graph analysis to try to tie addresses, perhaps even eventually identities together. And then you've got physical adversaries who will try to gain access to the device that you're using with your wallet and attempt to access it and get the private data inside of it. And then finally, at the most paranoid level, the wallet providers themselves may collect and potentially leak personal identifiable information about the user. And then finally, the community. We've had a number of incidents in my time at BitGo that have resulted in a great deal of community feedback. For example, a BitGo user reported on Reddit that they've lost 85 Bitcoins while using our legacy recovery tool to try to redeem their wallet outside of our service. They reported that while the tool claimed to send the entire balance of 100 Bitcoins to their address, and in fact only sent 16 Bitcoins, and the rest resulted in a whopping mining fee of 86 Bitcoins. This problem was actually due to a year-old integer overflow bug in Bitcoin.js lib that we had fixed a month after its introduction, but along the line, somewhere, someone forgot to rebuild the tool with the new library, and thus it did not actually get pushed out to production. Thankfully for us, this transaction got mined by Antpool, which was a miner that we have a relationship with, and they graciously agreed to refund the entire balance. And in addition, BitGo paid out a 25 Bitcoin bug bounty to the user for uncovering this major bug, which could have been a lot worse. We do operate an ongoing bug bounty program. This happens to represent the largest payout to date. And with regard to bug bounty programs, I will say if you run any sort of Bitcoin handling service and you don't publicly state that you offer a bug bounty program, you just haven't realized it yet. There was also an issue that was uncovered related to change output privacy when Blocktrail noticed that our change outputs could be used to try to link Bitstamp activity, because Bitstamp is one of our exchanges that we service. So we now randomize change outputs, but this is an imperfect solution because many of our transactions actually send outputs to legacy paid to public key hash addresses in addition to our paid script hash addresses. So it's still pretty obvious in a lot of those cases which outputs are change outputs. And then we had the great patent incident. Someone noticed that we have a patent application on file at the trademark office. They created a throwaway account on Reddit and accused us of trying to patent multisig, which was a blatant lie. However, so the patent itself is for a process of creating different keys to a multi-signature address on disparate devices, which we use during the setup, the creation of our wallets. Unfortunately, due to the complexity of the patent application, not many people bothered to read it. Even the ones that did probably didn't understand what it said. I know I didn't the first time I read it. This understandably resulted in a great deal of backlash and confusion from the community. And at BitGo, we are firm believers that Bitcoin and the world in general would be better off without software patents. But we unfortunately recognize that we live in a world where patent laws exist and they have real-world consequences. So we support the elimination of software patents completely, but in absence of that, we believe that companies should commit to defensive-only use of software patents. So, in fact, BitGo CEO and author of our patent application, Mike Belshie, has been calling for defensive patent restrictions since 2008, and I'm happy to link to those blog posts. Because we believe software patents should only be used defensively, we've adopted the Innovator's Patent Agreement, which stipulates that they must only be used for defensive purposes, and even if the company ownership changes, the patent control is permanently attached to the authors who remain bound by the same restrictions. Twitter actually pioneered this in 2012, and we're happy to commit to it. Some people have made other proposals that go further than that, such as mutual defensive patent pools. And we actually believe this would be a great outcome. Unfortunately, nothing concrete exists around that yet. Plus, we don't actually have a patent. We only have a patent application. So if it ever becomes a patent, we will be happy to discuss creating a Bitcoin community-wide patent application tool for defensive purposes. While the prior three incidents were quite public, for the entirety of this year, BitGo has actually noticed that many of our posts, even mentioning our company name on Reddit, receive an inordinate amount of instant downvotes. This has actually been occurring since before any of the aforementioned incidents. We suspect that one of our competitors is running bots on Reddit to suppress any of our content. It was not quite clear to us why they would be so threatened by us. Unfortunately, the Reddit mods have been completely unhelpful with this issue, and we don't really pay as much attention to Reddit these days. And finally, I'll say, for the past 8 years of my career, I worked as a software engineer for an email marketing company, which I often consider to be legal spam. I received the occasional angry email from people as a result, which you would expect if you're sending tens of millions of emails a day. You're going to piss somebody off. But the Bitcoin community is a far different beast. It has a lot of members who hold very strong views that are generally at extreme ends of the spectrum. So it's been interesting to me because I've received more vitriol in the past 6 months of being a Bitcoin engineer than I did in 8 years of sending tens of billions of emails. My point being that if you're going to voice an opinion in the Bitcoin community, you'd better be able to do it calmly and with logic, and not stoop to the level of the trolls that will almost assuredly descend upon you. So I've been a Bitcoin enthusiast for 3 years. I've been a full-time Bitcoin engineer for 6 months. It's been a wild ride, and I'm pretty certain that we're only just getting started. So it's my pleasure to have been here, and thank you for listening to me.